Welcome to episode 1 of Get Up and Fold. If you are like 90% of the population, I guarantee you have a basket of laundry that has been staring at you for a week. If you're that other 10% that folds it right away, cool. Go get your laundry and let's fold together while I talk about random shit. Hi, my name is Crystal. I'm a triplet mom of 5. I am in no way prepared for this, but I wanted to talk about being pregnant with triplets and our birth story. So I figured what better time to do that while I'm folding all their clothes. Okay, so are you okay? What happened? We found out that they were triplets when I think I was like around 8 to 12 weeks. Ow. At my first ultrasound. Finding out was interesting. I wish I was recording it. All we did was laugh. Everyone asked, what'd you do when you found out? And we just laughed. We were in total disbelief. Everyone asked, do triplets run in your family? No, twins do. However, because they're identical, it has nothing to do with genetics. Supposedly, Jacob! Anyways, because they're identical, supposedly it has nothing to do with genetics. After lunch, this isn't going to work. It's going to take like 6 days to record. Again, because they're identical, supposedly it has nothing to do with genetics. Just complete random. My egg divided. No, I did not do any kind of treatment. No IVF, nothing. We were planning to have one more baby. Took a year to get pregnant, so I almost considered calling someone. But I've always been like that. It takes me a while to conceive. You know, I didn't do anything different. I didn't take any meds, nothing. And then, what do you know? There was 3. So the tech saw 1, and having had a miscarriage, I was super anxious just to hear the heartbeat. So when I heard a heartbeat, I started crying. You know, I was super relieved. And then I was joking. Ow. I was joking to her. I always make that joke. Don't make that joke. I said, there's only 1, right? Everyone in my family was joking that we would have twins because it was time for twins in the family. Anyways, when I said that, I was expecting her to laugh and say, yeah, no, there's only 1. And she didn't. She just said, she didn't laugh. She said, actually. And so then my heart stopped and I'm like, what? There's twins? And she was like, yeah, I see another one. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then we were freaking out about that for probably a minute as she was moving around the ultrasound wand. And I'm like, I can't believe this. And we were dying of laughter thinking like, and I think I said, oh, everyone was right. You know, they all said I was going to have twins. That's crazy. And I was excited. And then she goes, and there's another one. And that's when, like, I don't know. It was, honestly, I kind of blacked out, I think. All I know is we kept laughing. And I freaked out at first and I said, do they all have heartbeats? Because I was petrified of losing a baby. And I knew one of them did, but at that point, I wasn't sure, you know. And she went and got heartbeats on every single one of them. They were all just slightly different. And then Kevin, of course, like asked the tech, how long have you been doing this? Like, are you sure? And she laughed and she's like, you're my first triplet. But like, yes, I'm 100% positive. There are 3 separate babies here. We got all the pictures. We're freaking out. We left there and we walked out in utter shock. Like, I wanted to walk because the ultrasound, it was inside the hospital. And I wanted to walk in the hallways, Jacob, and like scream. Like, I'm having triplets. Like, what? But we just kind of walked out in a daze. And then when we got outside, we started laughing. And I had a meltdown. I started crying. Jacob, what are you doing? I had a meltdown because I knew... Hold on. Go this way. Okay, go. I knew that, you know, I was already petrified of losing a baby, and I knew having multiples, especially that early, your risk is so high. It is so high to not carry them long enough to viability. And so I panicked and had a meltdown, and Kevin calmed me down. And then we, you know, sat in the car and we're like, we need to tell someone. We can't like not tell someone. And that's the one thing I kind of regret that I wish I would have recorded more people's reactions. I only started recording when we went to visit Kevin's family up in Michigan. But we went to my grandpa's house because we're like, who can we tell that won't tell anyone? So we went to him. He had 9 kids, so it was so sweet. We went and told him. He got teared up and you know, gave us some words of encouragement because I was still kind of tearful, and it was good. It was cute. And then, you know, I think we told my dad next because I think he was babysitting for us, and I don't remember exactly, but I know I handed him the ultrasounds. And he figured it out, and he died of laughter. He thought it was hilarious. Anyways, that was that. Then we told people in Michigan, and that was cute. I did a little announcement with onesies that I ironed on letters A, B, and C. And then I had, you know, I handed it as a gift to Kevin's mom and a few of his family members to like pull out the onesies. And at the end, the ultrasound was in the letter C, like showing that there's 3 of them. So it was fun. At this point in the pregnancy, so we went on vacation to the Outer Banks. Pretty soon after I found out I was, pretty soon after I found out I was pregnant. And that was a little rough. The ride there wasn't bad. The ride back, I was very sick. And during that trip, I'm just gonna make up one pile because I can't think and talk apparently. During that trip, it did suck. I got sick quite a few times while we were there. You know, I couldn't really enjoy food, but it was tolerable because it was early enough, I think. And then after we found out they were triplets, like a little bit later, after we found out they were triplets, it was kind of anticlimactic. So going back, after we found out, I called my OB office and I told them, hey, I was just informed that we are having triplets. And they freaked out and they're like, oh, wow, okay. And they're like, well, we don't see triplets here because I live in a small town and you have to be delivered at a bigger hospital. So you're gonna need to switch OBs. And I was like, okay. So they gave me info for that. Or they said they were gonna, I think, reach out to someone. Stop, Jake. And then, after we got the gift put together for the people in Michigan to tell them we're on our way, and I get a message from my OB's office, and it is a nurse practitioner saying, hi, the radiology report actually came in and doesn't look like you're having triplets, you're having twins, so we can still see you. And I was like, that's wrong. And honestly, at that point, I was more panicked than excited, so I would have been happy for twins because I knew the risk went down a lot. I would have been okay with that, but I knew it was wrong because we saw 3 separate babies repeatedly on the ultrasound. And then the ultrasound was recorded like on my chart, so I could keep rewatching it. And there was obviously 3 different sacs. And I was like, I feel like a crazy person. And I told her that. I was like, no, like there's 3 separate babies. We heard 3 separate heartbeats. And she goes, that's really weird. You'll have to wait until you have an appointment with maternal fetal medicine, which was scheduled for like 2 months out, I think. She was like, you're just gonna have to wait, but it's twins. And I said, it's not. And then I I sent her screenshots of the ultrasound. Like, it really annoyed me that no one thought to review the ultrasound quickly. I'm an RN, but I'm not an ultrasound tech. I'm not an OB person. I don't look at ultrasounds a lot, and I can see there's 3. So it's like, how can you not see that there's 3? And it annoyed me that she just automatically read that radiologist report, heard that me say that there was 3, and then didn't question it. That really annoyed me. I'm not gonna lie. You okay? So I sent a screenshot, and then I was like, we're telling them because I'm confident there's 3. So we went to Michigan anyways and told everyone. And in the back of my mind, I'm freaking out. Like, am I just hyping this up to be just twins? And then flash forward, this was on like a Friday, and then on Monday, I get a call from an actual OB in their office, like the doctor. They have a lot of midwives and nurse practitioners, and the doctor called me. I never talked to this doctor in my life, and she was like, hi, so I was reviewing, your messages, and I went ahead and because my last message to them was, will you please have a different radiologist review this report? Because I wholeheartedly disagree, and I cannot wait another 2 months to figure out if I have 2 babies inside of me or 3. That's absurd. This should be able to be discovered now. Can you just have someone else review this ultrasound? Please see this screenshot of 3 separate sacs and 3 separate egg yolks or whatever. Stop.
No. Okay, go in my room.
The last message I think I sent on Saturday or Friday or something, and then on Monday the OB called me and was like, I went ahead and had had the radiologist that read it relook at it, and you are correct, they made an error, we just never see triplets that often, was their excuse. And I'm like, okay, so you put me through all this stress for no reason. But anyways, I knew it was 3. How? So that cleared that up. And then the pregnancy itself, from after you find out you're having them, the pregnancy itself is pretty normal. Like, it's like any other pregnancy. And so that's kind of weird because you find out this crazy news and they're like, go home and wait 2 months. I'm like, what? But yeah, you treat it exactly the same, at least for me. And then I had no information. I didn't know if they were identical at this point. I didn't know anything. I just knew that there was 3 of them. I joined every group I could find online to try to get like some kind of an insight. And then my MFM appointment, my maternal fetal medicine appointment came up finally. And at that appointment, it really started to set in. It started to feel real because they do a more thorough scan. They see triplets all the time, so they can tell you a lot more details. At that point, we had a long ultrasound, and then we talked to the doctor afterwards in her office, and she explained what type of pregnancy we had. So we were monochorionic triamnionic. So if it was monochorionic monoamniotic, it would have been the highest risk triplet pregnancy there is, because they would share 1 placenta and they share a sac. So there's so much risk with cord entanglements and them forming and fusing together, like Siamese twin type thing. But since they had separate sacs, they just shared a placenta. It was still a higher risk triplet pregnancy because there's a lot of risk for twin to twin or triplet to triplet transfusion. They call it twin to twin still in triplet pregnancy. There's still a huge risk for that. And that can cause one baby to not grow or whatever. And since they share the placenta, if one baby does bad, it can affect all of them unless you go in and, it's like a whole thing. So anyways, at that point, since we found out we had 1 placenta, that's how we knew for sure they were identical. We did not know the gender. And yeah. So then the pregnancy itself, going forward, from that point on, it was just very intense. It was very, very intense and very, very fast. It was like the slowest, fastest time frame of my life. Everything was amplified. Appointments were amplified. Symptoms were amplified. My pain was amplified. It was brutal. And I tried to work for a little while in the very beginning, but I stopped pretty soon because my body just could not take it. And on top of that, I decreased my hours so much that my work was not covering Lily and Jacob's daycare. So it was totally pointless. We were losing money having me work. So I ended up staying home. I don't even remember what week in pregnancy I stopped working, which devastated me because I absolutely loved the job that I found. But it was what had to happen, unfortunately. And then Jacob, where was I? Let's sleep. Anyways, everything was intense is the best way to put it. We would go for so many appointments, and the appointments were long. They were so long because, you know, when you're pregnant with one, you get like an anatomy scan like one time, and it's like an hour-long appointment. I got that essentially every single appointment, and at one point in time, I would get that like I think 2 or 3 times a week. 2 times a week, I think, at one point, like later on, because like they couldn't get it all, so I would go back. It was just a whole thing. But those hour-long appointments, it's an hour per baby. So for me, it was 3-hour ultrasound, and then they scheduled like a half hour after to talk to the doctor. So it was like a 3.5 to 4 hour appointment, 2 to 3 times a week. Like it was just nuts. It was nuts. And at this point, obviously I ended up delivering, you know, at 27 weeks, 6 days. So I wasn't even further along. The further along you get more appointments. So it was crazy. And every appointment I had pure anxiety that something was going to be wrong. But we were so lucky. They did great. They did so good. Hey! Babies did so good. No, you need to go. Thank you. The babies did so good. They shared their fluids very nicely. Baby girl C, which is now Eve, ended up with polyhydramnios or something. She had too much fluid in her sac, and so they assumed that she was taking like the cord flow, she was taking more than she should, but the flow was good to the other two. She just had a lot. So I essentially had like the size of a sack for another baby in my belly at that point. So that's why I ended up, they warned me that there was a good chance because of that fluid that I would go into preterm labor because of so much pressure. Because on top of having the 3 babies, I had that extra fluid. What? Just put them on the mantle.
I don't want the babies to eat it.
Yeah, I don't want the babies to eat it either. So, anyways, I went into the hospital at 22 weeks for contractions. I had contractions that would not stop. They felt like they were getting worse. You know, this is my first rodeo, so I kind of knew what was happening. So at 22 weeks, we went in. And of course, they stopped. Like, they always do when you're pregnant. If anybody else is in this boat, you know. You go in because you're feeling things, they hook you up, and they're gone. But they stopped, and then they would come and go. And they were, like, you could see the contractions, but they weren't doing anything. I wasn't dilating or effacing, so they sent me home. They calmed them down, sent me home. And then I was okay. I would feel, you know, twinges every now and then with contractions, and I would rest and tried to drink as much water as I could, but it was very, very hard to rest when you have other kids at home. It was like next to impossible. And I'm a terrible water drinker, but I did do better. I'm not gonna lie, I did do better. And I was hydrated and I did all the things. And then flash forward to 27 weeks, 6 days. So at 28 weeks, they start NST tests, unless they need to do it sooner. But for me, they're like, we'll start doing the NST, the non-stress test, at 28 weeks for you. And then you'll get them done. I think it was twice a week for a while, maybe 3 times a week, until you deliver. And I was like, cool. I hadn't had one up until that point. And so we went in on Friday. So I turned 28 weeks on a Saturday. So they scheduled it for Friday. And I felt fine. I felt some contractions randomly, but it felt super random. It did not feel, cyclical. So we went in, I think I went straight to that. I didn't have an ultrasound beforehand. I was supposed to have an ultrasound after it. And during the scan, the lady was like, do you feel those contractions? And I go, I feel ones randomly, but not like, consistent. And she goes, okay. And she's like, I see them consistently. I was like, really? I had no idea. None. I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, it looks fine though, blah, blah, blah. The babies are doing great. It's like, cool. So we talked and she seemed very relaxed. And she's like, let me just have the doctor review this and then we'll send you for your ultrasound. The doctor came in and saw it and she goes, you're in labor. And I was like, excuse me? She's like, you don't feel that? And I'm like, no. She's like, you're in labor. You need to go upstairs right now. And the tech was like, oh. And so they finished that up. They called upstairs. And she's like, I want you to still get your ultrasound so we can check cord flow. But we'll do that upstairs. You need to get admitted. We need to check you. Make sure you're not dilating. So I went upstairs, got admitted. And it took them forever to find the babies on the monitor, and they'd find them, they'd be gone. I'd find them, they'd be gone. And then just being in an uncomfortable position, I really feel like queued up my contractions because you have to stay put. And then once they get them, I'm like, I don't want to move because they'll be back to move the monitor again because the babies keep coming up. It's just, so then my contractions were a little bit increasing. They checked me right away and I was only half a centimeter dilated, if that's even a thing. And they're like, okay, you should be fine. I'm like, cool. At this point, after they checked me, told me I wasn't that dilated, I'm just assuming, I had always assumed that at some point in this pregnancy, I would probably be admitted and be monitored for a while. I didn't think it would happen that day, but I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to hang out the hospital for a while. They're going to keep an eye on me. They could do so much to stop contractions. If they start progressing, it'll be fine. So they started me on all the things. I don't even know. They gave me the blood pressure pill to try to relax my smooth muscle to stop the contractions. And I don't know if they hooked me up to magnesium at this point. I think they tried the pill first. Sure, if you stay at the table. Yeah, I don't think it was magnesium at this point because I needed to get that scan. So I went and got that scan. The MFM doctor came up and she checked me and she's like, I'd say you're a 1. And she's like, but you could have been a 1 before. Everybody's finger is different, blah, blah, blah. She's like, that doesn't necessarily mean you're progressing, but we'll keep an eye. And then the blood flow was perfect. She said the babies looked great. So then I went back to my room. They rehooked me up. And then I think they did the magnesium at this point because the contractions weren't stopping. And I know everybody who's been on magnesium, it's absolutely horrid. So I fought through that. But then right at the very end, I actually had a severe reaction to it. And I stopped breathing. I couldn't breathe. I'm pretty sure I stopped breathing. It was I think respiratory suppression is a potential adverse effect. And I think that's what happened to me. It was when the bolus was going in. So they stopped that. And the nurse immediately stopped it, called for help because I could not breathe. It was the scariest. It was probably the scariest thing I've ever experienced. Just sitting there and I was fine. I was talking, I was hot and having the regular side effects, but then all of a sudden I was and oh God, it was awful. And then they're like, you have to get the rest of this magnesium. And I'm like, I do not, because I will die and then it won't matter. And they ended up doing a very slow drip and I was okay. Yeah, it was horrible. And then at this point, I looked at Kevin and I was like, you should just go home. We lived an hour away. I was like, go home, get the kids to bed, you know, grab me this and that. And the nurse walked in and she's like, well, where do you live? And we're like, we're an hour away, but like, I'm gonna be here for a while. I mean, and she's like, don't leave yet. Let's just wait. Thank God she said that. She's like, let's just wait a minute. And I was like, okay. So he called my dad and updated him. And then they sent in the NICU nurse practitioner to come and talk to me about what to expect. They just do that just in case. While she was talking to me, oh, your teethers hurt. Go. While she was talking to me, my contractions ramped up out of nowhere. And I remember, like, I was like nodding along, and then I started to have to breathe through the contractions, but I really hadn't had to do much. And then I'm like, oh my goodness. And then she's like talking about the NICU, going on, and I'm like, and then eventually she was like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't think so. And I was like, I looked at the nurse and I go, can you get the doctor to come check me? Because like, I feel way more confused right now. Okay. Anyways, I asked the nurse to have the doctor come in to check me. She goes, okay. And so she leaves. A different doctor comes in. She checks me. And she's like, you're at, I think I was 3 centimeters. And I think I was almost totally effaced. And so she's like, you need to deliver these babies now. And I'm like, I'm only 3 centimeters. What are you talking about? And she's like, your babies are teeny tiny. She's like, it will not take 10 centimeters for them to fall out. And she's like, we need to deliver now to ensure that they're safe, especially since there's one placenta. If you deliver one and another one gets stuck, it could just be horrible. And I was like, okay, but I'm only 3 centimeters. And she was like, it's different because they are so small. And I was like, okay. So they instantly, you know, did the very fast turn of the room and got me prepped instantly. It was crazy. It was super fast. And then we had to wait because I think the doctor had to go do something with one more patient. So like everybody was ready and they're ready to wheel me. And then we were just like waiting. I don't remember what it was for, if it was for an OR room or if the doctor was doing, I don't remember. But it was kind of funny because the nurse was like, what the heck is going on? But anyways, while that was happening, Kevin called all the people and was like, I guess we're having babies. So that was nuts. And then, yeah, we took me to the OR and had my first C-section. That was terrifying. The baby, so they had to cut through, my placenta was anterior and she had to cut through my placenta, and because of that, she cuts off, when you cut through the placenta, you cut off oxygen. So she delivered those babies. So let me back up. Before the surgery, she said, we will do, if we are able to, we will do delayed cord clamping, you know, to try to get the babies all the goodies from your placenta or from your cord blood. And she's like, just because it's C-section doesn't mean we can't do that. She's like, just depends on the state they're in. And I said, okay. She's like, if anything's wrong though, it's gonna go really, really fast. And I was like, okay. So then in the OR, all I hear, I'm laying there staring at the ceiling, and all I hear is baby 1's out, baby 2's out, baby 3's out. Like literally, as soon as she said out, the next one was out. It was insanely fast. And I stared at Kevin wide-eyed. And we both just knew that something was wrong. Gosh, I can't even talk about it. Anyways, so we both just knew something was up, and I remember so vividly, he leaned down to my ear and he just said the Hail Mary to me over and over again, just on repeat. And like, I literally felt a peace wash over me that I've never felt before. It was like, I'm sorry. It was insane. It was crazy. Anyways, in those minutes, it felt like hours, but minutes while they were doing all of that and getting the babies out completely and while the doctor was preoccupied with something, then he did that. And then finally, the doctor like took a breath and was like, whew, I feel like that was all under 1 minute. Or all within the same minute. And one of the nurses was like, it was. So they were all born on the exact same minute, just seconds apart, which is super cool. And at that point, I kind of took a breath. So I was like, okay, she doesn't sound panicked anymore. And I was like, why did that go so fast? What happened? She's like, I'm so sorry. I had to cut through your placenta. So the babies, you know, were without oxygen while I did that, so I had to get them out insanely fast. And I'm like, no, it's okay, thank you. But it was so scary. So then after that, they sent me to recovery. Kevin went with the babies. And then his sister and his mom got there pretty soon. I think either while I was in surgery or right after. I don't even really know. And so they were able to go to the NICU, I think, with the babies. So that was good. And then they wheeled, like, my recovery was, I don't even know, somewhere near the OR. So while they wheeled the babies to the NICU, I was able to kind of see them, but I really couldn't see much because I had to lay flat, and like they were in this giant incubator and they were this big. So it was just, I remember the one thing in recovery what's crazy was, so I guess because of all that fluid that Eve had, I like flooded the OR. Like, cause they have bags to catch all of that, but it like overflowed that and went all over the floor. So they like miscalculated how much I bled because it mixed together and they didn't measure it at the time they were supposed to measure it or something. I don't know. So it said that I lost, like, I wouldn't be alive, the amount of blood I lost because of how much fluid came out of me. So that people were panicking over that for a while in recovery. But then eventually I was released from there and they wheeled me to the NICU. They actually pushed my bed into the girls' rooms. So Noelle and Natalie shared a room, and then Eve was in a different room. She usually had a roommate in there. And then I kind of saw them, kind of didn't. I got so sick. I started puking in the NICU. I felt terrible, and I'm like, I don't want to seem like, I remember thinking like, I don't want to seem like, I don't want to see my babies, but like, please get me the F out of here. I need to get into a stationary bed and like lay down. I felt so sick. So they wheeled me out, and then I stayed in my room. I delivered them at 7:12 p.m. And I think I stayed in my room until the following morning. And then Kevin was able to wheel me to the NICU. And I could actually see them because I wasn't like insanely sick. So yeah, then that started our whole NICU journey, 3 months long. And it did annoy me in the beginning because they always referred to them as 27 weekers, and I'm like, listen, I was hours away from 28 weeks. And when babies are 28 weeks, it's like a different milestone, you know, and like they kind of approach things differently. So it was kind of frustrating, but in the long run, it did not matter. It doesn't matter. They are technically 27 weekers. 27 in a few days. So yeah. One thing I didn't mention about my pregnancy that really throws people off, and it's really odd. So I felt less kicks with all three of them than I did with a singleton baby. And a lot of triple moms experience that. It's wild. It's crazy to me. But for them, I had an anterior placenta. I didn't have that with either Lily or Jake. And on top of that, it's one giant placenta, so I think it's extra cushiony. And I did end up feeling kicks. I forget, I think around, so I felt flutters early on, really low. Like I'm talking 11 weeks, I felt flutters. But the full, that's a kick, that's a jab type feeling, or like you watch it move on your tummy. I think that started around 21 weeks or 22. And the difference with them versus the one baby was you would feel the same kind of kick, like that strength of it. You would feel like the same type of kick, but in so many different spots, like at the same time. So I would feel a jab here, a jab over here, and like 2 jabs down low all at the same time. Like that was the wild thing with their kicks, was that it wasn't so much the amount of kicks, but it was like the fact that I felt so much at one time. Because it was like, you know, probably her arm and her leg going one way and her feet going one way and her head going another and the other. It was wild. That was something that I do wish I could have experienced longer of, was their movement inside me, because it was super cool while I had it. And if I had those extra, you know, I mean, I was supposed to go there 34 weeks. So if I had those extra 5, 6 weeks of them inside me, I would have been cool to experience, but it was all for the best. Baby B and Natalie ended up, oh my gosh. Natalie ended up needing a blood transfusion instantly. They do not know why, and they'll never know why. But there's a very, very, very good chance that if I hadn't been where I was when I was, for that NST and for them to know, so if I wasn't there, for them to tell me I was in labor, I 100% wouldn't have gone to the hospital until that point where they were ready to deliver me, because I didn't really feel like I was in labor until that point. And if that were the case, I would have delivered all 3 of these babies in my car and they would have all died. And then on top of that, I probably would have died, because I did read later on that my placenta, like, because they do a report on your placenta, and there was signs that it was abrupting by baby B, which was Natalie. So that could explain why she had so much blood loss instantly and so fast, because that ultrasound before I delivered was completely normal, so it wasn't necessarily a twin unless it happened right at delivery. Get down. But regardless, if I hadn't been where I was when I was, there's a really good chance that all of them would have died, or I would have died too. So it's truly a miracle that they're all here, that they did so well considering when they were born. I mean, I get the steroid shots that I should have probably gotten back when I first went in for contractions. But that's, you know, it is what it is. I got 1 shot when I was admitted, but then I delivered within an hour or so after that. So it didn't really do much for their lungs. So that kind of sucks. But the fact that all of that happened and they're doing so incredibly well.
Can I put this on?
It's just nuts. It's crazy. So yeah, I think that's it.
That's where we stop.
I think she might have pooped. No, she didn't. I'm gonna go because she is nuts. And I still did not get to finish this laundry. I hope you got your laundry done. Thank you so much for watching.